Yeah, we do Wednesday, 9-person board, so.
Okay, all right, we have a quorum, and I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mahalski,
Here.
Mike Sell. Here. Parker,
Here.
Larson,
Here.
Doyle is excused, Mazade,
Here.
Bowden, Spataro,
Here.
and Smith is excused.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the last regular commission meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as written. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Then we get to our public hearings. Hearing case 2012-18.
This is a request for a special land use permit for section 601 of Article 6 of the zoning ordinance of a private non-commercial recreation area at 966 Washington. Brett Gilbert. This is going to be a sort of a park across the street from the Fannie Wilson Sun Shop. However, Mr. Gilbert, who is the owner, has since decided he would like to severely change his site plan, so he has to table this until he gets his new site plan revised.
Commissioners?
Okay, well, I would move that we table this to our meeting in September.
It is a public hearing. Do we have to hold a public hearing?
That's just my wondering, that's all.
Well, yeah, but I mean, wouldn't we do it as a public hearing in September because we don't have a site plan for the public comment on?
Or why don't we do, can we just ignore it?
That's
He
your
requested
question.
to be withdrawn.
Well, yes, sir. Would we, would,
I think since the fact that it will be a public hearing in September, we really don't have to do it. Unless somebody in the audience that wants to speak to it. Seeing none.
John out there, can you give us some direction that we actually have to hold a public hearing?
You can table it, you're gonna have to renotice, because you got a new public hearing on you.
Okay, so this table been moved and seconded to table motion. No discussion on the table. Roll call, please.
Mahalski,
Yes.
Mike Sell. Yes. Parker,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Mazade,
Yes.
Spataro.
Yes.
Motion's tabled. Is there any new business come before this commission? Okay, then we go to old business, case 2012-17. Tabled last month.
It's a request for a site plan review for the property at 2400 Fisher Drive by Melching.
Commissioners, questions? Yes, Commissioner Larson.
No, I guess my first question is, were we assuming we were gonna get some kind of environmental report? Is the reason we tabled it the last meeting? Is that report forthcoming? Does anyone know?
I think part of the reason we tabled it last month was because of the possible committee that was being formed by the state. And we found out that committee was going to meet or had met, or et cetera.
Well, I don't know if there was a committee, but I know there was gonna be a meeting involving various parties that are potential stakeholders to that site. I don't know if that would be appropriate or not. I was not there at that meeting. But I voted at the table, and one of the reasons I did is that the site plan did not show how that portion of the site that was proposed to be used fit within the context or a plan for the larger site. And my understanding of the ordinance required that how it integrated with adjoining uses in the sense of traffic patterns and that kind of stuff should be addressed. And so I was hoping that we would have something showing the entire site and how this portion of the site fit into the larger site going forward. One of of my concerns from the get-go with this property is that we don't do it piecemeal, but that we avoid the possibility of one use, for want of a better term, creating an orphan of a large part of property, because now other uses are prevented because of that one piece that was approved. So I've been asking, since this first came up at the beginning of the year, for a plan that shows the whole site so that we can approve various elements in the context of a plan for the whole site. So hopefully that's what we're getting.
I understand staff met with Mr. Melching and wondered what was the result of that.
Maybe I can help a little bit. The city did participate in a meeting that was hosted or held called by the DEQ. And there's a number of parties that participated in that meeting, including the developer and the DEQ and the city. A whole host of subjects regarding the site was discussed. But I would say that there was limited discussion relative to or really not very much discussion relative to the site plan that is that subject of this meeting tonight. A number of other things were discussed, and particularly what currently is occurring on site, what might occur on site in the future, how the DEQ might be able to assist Mr. Melching in that development of that site. But again, not really a lot with relationship to the site. That wasn't the subject of the meeting.
Are there more meetings planned?
There are, I'm glad you brought that up. We did walk away from that meeting. First of all, I'd say I think it was a very productive meeting. Others that participated in the meeting felt the same way, but we walked away agreeing that there will be meetings. And in fact, as we speak, there is an attempt at setting up that next meeting right now involving the DEQ and other state agencies to work with Mr. Melching and other stakeholders on that development.
Any questions, Commissioner?
I have a number of them, but I guess that's a public hearing.
No, it is not a public hearing.
Not a public hearing.
Yes, we already held a public
Okay.
hearing.
Okay, then I'll go with my piece. Again, is what we're doing is I'm assuming the request is approval of the site plan. Okay. In my many years in municipal service, I've seen a lot of site plans. And to me, this is a topography map with some areas colored in. There are no buildings, there is no paving, there is no personal property, machines, any fixtures, anything relevant. As I've struggled with this for the whole month, and I've read through the letter from June 21st several times, there was a couple things that I noted with interest. And one is conforming 1-2 principal use, they say scrap metal. And then they made it sure we do not operate junkyards. Then we get into another part where it says, we understand the use of the property as a shipping port is not explicitly permitted by right in the I-2 General Industrial District. But then in the next paragraph, the last sentence says, a large factor in our decision to acquire the property is our belief that the industrial use of the property includes, by right, the accessory shipping port. My concern on that one, I mean, I'm going to vote no on this anyway, but if the majority decides, is that we take that out not to mean tacit approval, that they have the right to do whatever they want to do in that spit. Additional remarks as I read through here, and I'll just note them.
Item 4, no new structures proposed. No new drives proposed. As far as soil erosion and sedimentation, does this need to go to the Drain Commissioner? Don't believe so? Isn't it within 500 feet of a lake or stream?
We have our,
You are your own agent?
have our own city engineer who checks for stormwater management procedures.
I know, but is he the soil erosion and sedimentation agent for Muskegon County? Or is he for the city of Muskegon? That's something you may want to check with the Drain Commissioner. I talked to him the other day. Number 20, no new lighting proposed. Location for solid waste disposable facilities, including recycle facilities, none proposed. Professional review. Additional studies may be required as regards to regional impact. Infrastructure impact assessment and traffic studies to be paid for by the developer. Are any of those necessary? If we're going to be bringing in scrap by the double bottom, do we need de-acceleration lanes? What's going to happen to the lanes that are established as they are in the thing? Compatibility with surrounding land use and development. To me, there is none. This does not, it doesn't benefit anybody across the street, before it and after it. Belcom Coal is a hard sell already. Sales will be non-existent. Impacts the country club. If you want to rent the country club for a banquet, you want to walk out and see a scrapyard in action. To me, it's going to create noise pollution, air pollution, ground pollution. Now, my last question, and the last one, well, I guess I'm done with there. I've got that in. Now I've got my other notes, and I have one question that's the most important, and I would like to be able to address that to the city attorney. Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Mr. Schreier, as a member of the Planning Commission, who is a volunteer, who understands zoning as it is per se, understands the applicant's right.
I think Commissioner Larson was right, though, when it talked about, is there a need for a deceleration lane on the street? That street was reconfigured after the pumping operations were ceased and after most of the heavy trucking to the paper mill, long after the log trucks, for example, stopped running. So we don't know if the current street configuration is able to handle a substantial amount of truck traffic without that left turn lane or some sort of deceleration lane to handle that traffic. To me, the compatibility is, what's the access to the rest of the site? What impact is this going to have on the rest of the site? Anything this large that's going to have any kind of use on it, you have ingress and egress issues, you have drainage issues, and the drainage issues have been addressed, or at least looked at by the city engineer apparently. But I mean, from an overall site plan, we still haven't seen this proposed use showing less than half the site fits in what's going to happen with the rest of the site. The main entrances are not on this part of the site. Are they going to be connected? Or is the primary entrance to this use going to be what's shown on this part of the map? I mean, I think those are very legitimate questions. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask, how does this fit in with a larger site? Where's the access points? There's just one right here. So one would seem to, reasonably believe that they will use the other access points that are not shown on the site plan. And it troubles me that something that's fairly simple and basic and reasonable, which is show us your whole piece of property, show us how this particular proposal fits on that property and how it's gonna work, something we ask of every single person who submits a site plan, even if it's a little quarter of a block, a couple of buildable lots, that somebody wants to put some benches on and some planning so that their customers can sit and have lunch. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that of somebody who's asking to, you know, have us approve a site plan for, you know, 40% of a 120 acre parcel. So I'm hoping that some additional material was provided to answer those questions. But I'm not prepared to vote yes until we have answers to those. And I don't think those are unreasonable questions.
Any more questions from the commissioners?
My only question is, have we received anything else? We got one more piece of paper in our packet, but is there any more information forthcoming?
This is the same site plan we had.
Well, I guess my comment is, the things that I've heard so far, I don't disagree with as far as what we'd like to see. You know, it'd be nice to have a site plan that includes the whole site. It'd be nice to have maybe more information about the site, but I don't think those things are required. I don't think those things were, from what I understand, necessarily requested or required of the developer. The way I view it, I guess, is that, the way I would view this matter, I guess, is that the property in question is zone I2, which is general industrial, and such, the scrap metal processing that we're talking about is a permitted use on the site and allowed by the city zoning ordinance. Mr. Melching was asked to submit a site plan for that use, and he did so. I'm not aware that there's any plausible technical objections to the site plan that he submitted or his company submitted. Therefore, I think that this, while we might not like all components of the site plan or the particular use, I don't see why it should be approved.
I just would say that while we did not take a formal vote as a body saying we want these specific items brought forward, and perhaps we should, but I know I at least from this body, at every meeting this topic has come up, has said we need a plan that covers the whole site. So certainly that message has been conveyed from this dais to this property owner, both publicly at these meetings and in private. So, I mean, if he chooses not to, he chooses not to. If he's not required to, he may not be not required to, but he's been asked. And, so the claim he wasn't asked, no. Did we take a vote of it as a body and make a formal demand of it? No, we didn't. And perhaps that, we can't be more clear than that's what we're asking.
Commissioner Mazade?
I think I'd just say two things, and not to get into debate over this issue. There's no question that when the initial request came for aggregate on the site, there was a desire on the part of the planning commission to see a more formalized plan that included the use of the entire site. And at that time, we talked about, and we continue to talk about, the potential for planning and development on that site. And many people, myself included, believe that that's a good approach to that site. But I think that if a site plan is going to be rejected or tabled, then we need to call out the defects in that site plan. And I don't think that occurred. a month ago, and if the site plan is going to be rejected tonight, I think that meets the comparison.
Well, I have no problem agreeing with Commissioner Spataro, and if he wants to elaborate on it. Based on that, I move we table it again.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves, we haven't taken it off the table yet. So, I mean, if nobody votes to put it back on the agenda,
Well, that's also
it's
true.
still tabled, because we didn't set any date.
And a message to, or a motion to table would include discussion. And if we are gonna go down that road, and I think the manager is absolutely correct, we need to be very specific why it's being tabled and what we'd like to see. I'm sure the city attorney was brought here for a reason, or we have city staff here. You know, my own personal sake, I like to know, are my concerns to the point where that's legitimate reasons to table and ask for more information on a site plan? Or is what we've been presented sufficient that we should take action? If it is, then, you know, whether I'm personally liable or not, I don't feel I was elected to deny people the right to use their own property they bought based on what it was zoned. We haven't done that in other areas. In other areas where I have pushed for rezoning, for example, we took multi-use family down to single family, everybody with the current use that was going to be made non-conforming continued to be allowed to use that previous use without question. And that's what our ordinance calls for, and that's what state law calls for. And I don't want to be in a position here where we're telling somebody he can't use his own property for something that's allowed by the zoning. My concern is, based on my experience on this commission, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a planning expert, I don't have the technical training that they've had. This just seems awfully vague to me. And I'd like to know if what we've got is sufficient that we have to act on it, or is it appropriate for us to ask for more detail? Or is that just me wanting something that I'm not necessarily entitled to receive? And I don't know if it'd be appropriate to ask if the city attorney can answer that, or the manager can answer that, or planning staff. And certainly somebody with better technical knowledge and legal information than what I have perhaps could assist me.
Well, and that's why I've toured. I've laid to sleep at night and said, you know, all your time you've been municipally involved, you have a code, and so you follow the code. And I don't want to be melodramatic. This is a higher call. This is how many places have 120 acres on a lake and going to be used for a scrapyard. You are not going to hire any employees, you're going to move them. You are not going to get any effluent to increase the flow into the sewer system, of which SAP used to provide 55%. There are people who find this morally objection. Their objection is it's higher than what the paper says, and I can read it and I understand it. And on one hand, I don't disagree with you. On the other hand, in my heart, I cannot accept it. That's where I am, and if that's not acceptable, then, you know, that's my vote.
That person is prepared to offer some technical assistance on this, that we ask for. Because what my heart says and what will cost the city a lot of money to fight lawsuits are two different things. And I have a fiduciary responsibility for the taxpayers of this city, not to spend money on lawsuits that are lost before the city. I don't want to go down that road. So, if we could.
Maybe it'd be helpful if Mike, if you don't mind, talking about what we generally look for in a site plan, and to the extent that, maybe in your opinion, or the site plan either meets or doesn't meet the requirements. I think it's important for the planning commission to remember that, you know, there's been a number of occasions where we've approved or denied a site plan based upon deficiencies, and then we call those out, and the developer or property owner meets those requirements, and the site plan is approved. So maybe you could talk about that, Mike, and the fact that it's not just one department that takes a look at this.
All the usual departments that take a look at this, the DPW, engineering, planning, inspections department, and they all came back approved. They didn't feel that there was anything insufficient in the plans. I think Larry may have brought up some good points about how the whole site wasn't called out. But in the past, we have approved plans that do not necessarily show the whole site. But I think it, you know, they have their landscaping plan, they have their grading, they have everything that we normally would ask for. Kind of seems like some of it's whether we want to allow the use or not, which I don't really think this is what this is about. I think this is more about, is the site plan sufficient enough? And this is a pretty decent site plan. I think that we called out mostly everything that we have been looking for. Maybe some of the traffic concerns do make sense, but I'm not sure it's going to be any more traffic than what it's previously been used for in the past.
When you said that in the past we've approved site plans that didn't necessarily show the entire site, was that in a similar situation where we knew that there was potential for the rest of the site?
Site will be developed. And for now, the rest of the site is under demolition, so whether it's just going to be, they're going to say it's going to be left vacant, or they haven't decided yet. I really can't say what their future plans are, or whether we really need to know that, other than how they're going to use maybe the entrances, or how it's going to affect the rest of the site.
I don't want to wear my time out, but I guess the question would be, we have this before us as part of a bigger picture, and that is, we will be having a ballot question. And if, say, that's approved overwhelmingly, which doesn't matter if it's one vote more, but overwhelmingly is always, I guess, a good thing. Does that affect us at all? And if it doesn't have any effect with what we're dealing with, then, you know, that question's moot. But if that were the case, just keep tabling it till the election's over, or table it till it's over.
Commissioners, everything, commissioners.
Again, I'm asking staff, I'm asking Brian or John, what will the result of that vote be? Will it have no effect on this?
I think John might be better to serve answer.
You don't mean the podium or wherever it's like.
Come on.
Chairman.
Oh, you might as well come up and give your name and address. So we have it for the record.
John Schreier, my office address is 601 Terrace. Commissioner Larson, to answer your question, and without wanting to put myself into a box that I may be saying something slightly different in a potential lawsuit, I think what you will hear from the owners, and the owner's lawyers, is that if the zone change is approved, and if that's a valid way to make a zone change, which are some of Carl's questions, they will tell you that as a legal non-conforming use, that use has the right to continue. And
I would assume that.
And one of the legal non-conforming uses is the very thing that's in front of you today. I suspect the owners will also tell you that given what may or may not happen in November, they have a desire to be more aggressive on locking in their abilities to do industrial development in I-2, as permitted in an I-2, between now and November. So the particular use that's in front of you would be allowed even if the electorate decides to change this to waterfront marine, and if that's a valid way to change that zoning ordinance.
That's as good as answer as I expected. Thank you. Well, I don't think it's a good question.
Well, I will point out that the Chronicle published an article where they consulted with a professor from the law school who was formerly with the Michigan Municipal League and the, was a former municipal attorney who basically said the same thing, that there would be a legal argument that legally zoning is not subject to initiative, and that if the court did find that it was in favor of initiative, it still would call into question whether or not you could take away an existing use. In any event, I don't think it would be reasonable for us to get into the habit of delaying things for the sake of delaying things. I voted the table last time because I felt that there were some deficiencies in the site plan. I've heard from staff today that this meets the requirements, the minimal requirements to approve a site plan. Doesn't mean I have to like it. But again, you know, this is not, you know, there seems to, I was gonna wait till after this, so why don't we, I'll stop. There's something I want to say when we're done with this issue. I know we have another item, we got the form-based zoning things that I'm sure people want to talk about, because we've had that material for a while now. So I'll stop. Thank you.
I just want to get that one question I asked earlier. And as this letter seems to go with this, my concerns about passive approval for development of that spit being, in one part it says no, that it's not, in another part it said they have the right. Did you?
That's their letter.
I know, it's their letter to us. I understand that. But does the letter go with this? Is this to assume that we are dealing with a scrapyard, which it says here, but the scrapyard is around this spit of water, and they imply they have the right to do what they want with it?
I don't believe they've ever given up their right to use shipping, whether shipping things in or out. That has historically been used as a shipping port.
So this is all circled in, then that becomes part of the site plan that we're gonna go vote yea or nay on. This
The inlet.
inlet, spit, inlet,
Yeah.
all right.
Commissioners done? Mr. Schreier, please? No. Just so I don't make an error here, Mr. Schreier. I believe we have a couple of options that we can do. Nobody votes to take this off the table. We can leave it on the table. We can express our specific concerns to staff and have them work with Mr. Melching. Or we can take it off the table, allow for the discussion from the Melching group and the audience, and we can convey the things that we feel that we need, and at that time conditionally approve. Those things are met, or give full approval, or table again until those conditions are met. Am I correct in all of that?
I'm looking for the exact language in the zoning ordinance, and not finding it quickly, but essentially, it requires you to either approve a site plan, reject a site plan. If you reject, then articulate the reasons for the rejection, or third, conditionally approved. I would not take great issuance with a body last meeting who said we need more information and so tabled it. I think you're now getting to the point of, I don't think you're going to get any more information. That additional tabling is going to be very productive. And I think what you will find, I think the Melching Group will say, if asked, is we want a decision one way or the other. I would also point out for you that the standards for the site plan review are articulated starting on page 191 of the zoning ordinance, and so any rejection, frankly, needs to be triggered off of those criteria for the site plan review.
So commissioners, do you want to take this off the table?
Then I make a motion to take this item off the table for consideration.
For a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded to take the motion off the table and deal with it. Roll call, please.
Spataro,
Yes.
Mazade,
Yes.
Larson,
No.
Meixel,
Yes.
Mahalski,
No.
Parker,
Yes. Motion passes. All right. Commissioners, do you have any further questions of staff before Melching Group? Representative from Melching, want to speak to this, please come to the podium. Give us your name and address. Make your statements.
We appreciate the opportunity to address this with you. I'm Ron Bolching. I'm an attorney with the law firm Scope and two offices in Brandon and Holland here on behalf of Melching. Mr. Johnson, Phil Johnson is here with me as well. I believe you know him. I was not here with you last month, but I did hear reports of the meeting. We have heard the message about the request for a master plan, about the request for a PUD. We're not objecting to that. It is just premature. We can give you a site plan for the entire site. We can do it in a couple of different ways. We can put scrap metal processing over the entire site. We can put scrap metal processing where we think it's actually going to occur, and put the rest of it will be future industrial development. That's as much as we can tell you. As has been articulated, your zoning ordinance does not require that we are disallowed from using our property until we have uses for 119 acres. If that's what your zoning ordinance, if that's what you intend, you need to say that in your zoning ordinance. You don't say that our plan, our site plan application complies with your zoning ordinance. We are in favor of a master plan. We are in favor of a PUD, which will address all of your questions. We just don't have all the information right now. We are asking for a use which is permitted by right in the industrial district. We are asking for all accessory uses that accompany that use, and that would include the use of the shipping port. Again, that is by using your I-2 language combined with your I-1 language, and we are asking for the rights that we have as a property owner. I'm going to cut through a fair amount of what I would have otherwise said because a lot of it has been addressed. Mr. Schreier has adequately pointed out to you the standards in your zoning ordinance which need to be used when you make a decision. We are aware of the petition that's been filed. We are aware that the city clerk's been instructed to have that petition placed on the ballot in November. Our position is that a vote of the people cannot effectively rezone property in this city or in any other city. The Michigan Supreme Court clearly stated in a City of Livonia case that the initiatory process is precluded and superseded by the Zoning Enabling Act process. Land doesn't get rezoned in a city, in this state, without going through a planning commission public hearing, a recommendations to the legislative body, a decision by the legislative body. That's the process. Doesn't include a vote of the people. So we don't believe that any vote of the people will have any impact at all on our zoning. And as we've stated, even if there was a way to rezone the property, and even if it was rezoned by a vote of the people in November, I can hardly think of facts that are more susceptible to a grandfathered non-conforming use than 100 years of heavy industrial use on 119 acres. We're there, we've been there, we're allowed to continue to be there. The demolition activities that are occurring on the property are not a land use. That's not what we're allowed to do under zoning ordinance. We're permitted to do the demolition, but that's not the land use that we're allowed. We're allowed the land uses in the I-2 district. If we can't use the property for the permitted uses in the I-2 district, then my question to you is, what can we use the property for? If we're not allowed to use the property as it's zoned, then in our position, in our minds, the federal cases are clear, the state cases are clear, the Michigan Constitution is clear, and took the responsibility to clean up the property, but Melching can't sit by and allow its property rights to be taken away. Melching is only asking for the property rights that apply to every other property owner in the city, but we're asking for no less as well. It's a simple site plan. Mr. Larson has very adequately pointed out, it's a very simple site plan. There's not all that much to review because it's a pretty simple operation. It meets all of the requirements of the zoning ordinance. The city staff is satisfied. We're asking for a decision. Mr. Johnson is here. He can answer any specific questions you would have about the site plan process. I'd be remiss if I didn't say we are interested in cooperating with the city. We believe the August 7 meeting was a good meeting. It was a productive meeting. Mr. Spataro, I wasn't there either, but I've heard the same reports I'm sure you have. We think it was a good meeting. We want that dialogue to continue. But we want that dialogue to be mutual. We want it to be bilateral and not unilateral. We want to cooperate as much as we can. But we obviously want cooperation from the city. And cooperation from the city, in our minds, cannot include taking away from us the by right uses that we have under the zoning ordinance that every other property owner in the city has, just because we need to have a complete 119-acre plan before we can do anything on the property. That's not a fair standard. It's not in your zoning ordinance, and certainly we will object to any type of decision like that.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. You mentioned the site planning or master planning, if you will, and the potential for a PUD. How long do you think it might be or might take before you be to that point?
You just went above my pay grade. I'm not going to tell you. I would suspect that it will be a couple of years. I wouldn't say that that would be unreasonable before we know what the uses are going to be. And I'm just talking off the top of my head. I mean, we're talking about a large amount of land. We're talking about a cleanup operation that isn't done. We're talking about very sensitive discussions with the DEQ, with the prior owner. There are a ton of issues. And now we're talking about potential zoning issues and an initiatory petition and maybe vote the people. So there's so many things that could slow this thing down for so long. But it's not a round the corner kind of answer.
I think it's important to hear that though, because you mentioned master plan. I think it's important that none of us walk away thinking that might come tomorrow.
I appreciate that. And that reminds me of one thing. There was discussion about compatibility, and I at least want to address that. Absolutely, compatibility is an issue, but what we're looking at right now is a site plan for a limited piece of the land. No one could argue it's not compatible with what's there.
Right.
Anything else that happens on that property obviously is going to be in front of you. You will have a chance to review the compatibility at that point. Yes, it will be with the scrap iron operation being there, but again, that's being there as allowed by right. So in our minds, the compatibility is, it's certainly compatible with what is there now, which is really our zoning ordinance can ask, and all we can really tell you right now.
I asked a question at the last meeting regarding where the scrap steel staging and dismantling areas are located, as to whether that was area that was already polluted or was not, and I didn't get an answer to that.
Well, I'm gonna let Mr. Johnson answer questions about the site plan. I barely find my way home. They don't let me talk about those things on different legal issues.
When they have that problem, if you live in Muskegon.
Good evening. I don't recall the question last time, however, my knowledge of the site is.
Could you please give your name
Oh,
and
I'm
address,
sorry.
just for the minutes?
My name is Philip Johnson. I'm with Resource Planning and Design. I'm the planner for Melching Inc. on this project. My address is 105 West Exchange, Spring Lake. Regarding your question, I'm sorry I didn't recall that last time, but it's my understanding, and not to back out of the question because I don't deal with the contamination, but this end of the site is not the portion that's the focus of our discussions with the DEQ regarding remediation.
And one other question is, in relation to the dismantling and scrap staging areas, are on both sides of the boat basin, and they're also adjacent to the stormwater pond. What measures will be taken to prevent contamination from entering the lake, either through the stormwater pond or through the boat slip?
All the surface water, and I do have a full scale that I could set up and draw for you, the area, but as far as stormwater, everything's contained on site. We have the existing stormwater pond, which is east of the boat basin that was used previously by Sandy with the discharge into the municipal system. What we've done is we've added another settling basin, if you will, a sediment basin to intercept any runoff before it goes into the stormwater pond, which ultimately by flow is discharged into the city municipal system. There's no anticipation of contaminant runoff from the proposed use into that.
Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you. Open this up to the public. Anybody that would like to comment on this?
This is not a public hearing.
I feel that there are enough people here that are interested, and I'm going to allow them to speak. So if anyone has anything that they would like to say regarding this proposal, please raise your hand. Secretary.
My name is Peter Sartorius, 1575 Edgewater Street. Just a few thoughts to throw out for your consideration. First of all, I've been a professional planner in this community for almost 40 years. 6 years I served on this commission, 3 years as its chair. And I was also co-chair of the Imagine Muskegon planning effort a few years ago. I think one of the things we have to realize is that this is not an ordinary situation. In fact, it's a very extraordinary situation. And I believe the commission, both the planning commission and the city commission, have a responsibility to consider the impacts on surrounding land uses. I think the will of the people pursuant to a vote of the people is certainly relevant. It may not be binding, but it's certainly relevant. I think that a site plan, the fact that there is a site plan review implies that there are site considerations and standards to be considered for any development, especially since the current zoning is clearly incompatible with the current land uses that surround it, namely waterfront marine and residential. Anybody who's lived in that neighborhood for a number of years knows the impact of the former paper mill in terms of noise, traffic, particulates, air quality, and so forth. So given the location, and the contemporary circumstances, the impact on the surrounding uses is relevant and urgent. I think it would be myopic to think that this site should be looked at as a closed site, and that its master plan for the site development has no relation to the master plan of this city, for which we've spent a lot of time and money developing a vision for the south shore of Muskegon Lake and the west end of the city. We've spent millions of dollars in restoration projects on the south end, on the south shore and the west end of Muskegon Lake, with the concept of converting its former industrial uses to recreation and tourist uses and other commercial uses, containing the industrial uses to the east end of the lake. This is our master plan, it belongs to the people, and I think that the commission, the city commission, as well as this commission, has a responsibility to consider those kinds of design and developments, criteria and standards, and apply them to the site plan review. So I think, and finally, I just think that this represents once in a 100-year opportunity for this city to realize the vision that started around 1970 for converting the industrial uses of Muskegon Lake to more compatible uses for the quality of life of our current citizens and our future citizens. So I guess I would have to agree with Commissioner Spataro that to look at this site plan just as one development within a larger plan that isn't developed, it would be a mistake. I would also ask the city attorney to look at the implications of a citizen petition to rezone this property. If that petition is successful, true, it's not binding on the city. Such a vote has no power to actually rezone. However, it will force the city commission to undertake the due process involved and stipulated by the city ordinance in a rezoning hearing. So there will be a hearing if the ordinance passes. If the petition passes, there will be a process to rezone. If that process is successful in rezone, then I think, and I would ask the city attorney to check it out, I think that any future starts on any uses that were incompatible with the new zoning would be prohibited. Yes, any development that has already been started would be grandfathered, but there would be no future uses permitted under I-2 if a rezoning was successful.
Hey.
Good afternoon, my name is Roger Nye. I live at 1495 Westwood Circle in the Northern Shores. I'd just like to remind you that our water comes from Lake Michigan, just a few miles away from the channel. In view of that fact, I would like to know whether the site plan includes anything about whether any of this period of time. I would like you to consider what would happen if the Muskegon River were to have what's called a super flood, kind of that occurs every once in a while in natural history. And this scrapyard gets washed into Lake Michigan. And what effect would it have upon our drinking water? I would like to ask you whether this site plan gives any indication as to what the elevation is of the land above the lake level. And again, whether it takes into consideration in any way the history of flooding of the Muskegon River. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Anyone else in the audience like to speak to this issue? Yes, ma'am.
Supposed to be rezoned. It's an extraordinary situation dealing with the health. Why rush? You know, he told us it'd be 2 years of demolition before any development started.
You
Why?
gave him a November deadline, that's why there's a rush.
Well, yeah. And also, he's been known, I mean, Mr. Melching has been known to go ahead and do what he wants to do without full permission. The smokestack. And, you know, I just feel like we're being bullied. You guys are being bullied by him. And he's not bringing in the jobs that I think the reason that it wasn't rezoned happened. We're not getting jobs out of this. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. I just feel like there's so many unanswered questions. The legality of it, yes, that's one thing, but really what's wrong with this country now is there's very little common sense being used and very little action from the heart. And I feel that's what our local governments really have to start taking into account. On top of that, the will of the people. And, you know, the fact that it might not be legally binding is one thing, but, you know, I want you to listen to the will of the people. I mean, Mr. Spataro, I've asked you as a planning commissioner and as a city commissioner, please arrange for some public hearings with the DEQ and the EPA. We want to be involved. These people here who are coming, we want a better Muskegon. And that lake is a precious, precious commodity. Lakes all over the nation, little towns, the manufacturing has left. And then we're left with these carcasses that the vultures come in and pick for a few years. We're left with dirty land, and we don't want to go that route. So I just really want us to don't rush this. What happened to 2 years of demolition?
You gave him a November deadline. That's why there's rush.
I didn't. I was not for that. I'm happy that the will of the people might be heard, but still, I was not for that. I saw it as possibly detrimental. So, you know, all right. One thing I wanted to know is I saw there was a gas main being put in there this couple weeks ago. A large gas main was being put in right along the road into Sappy. What's up with that? You know, well, I think I've said about it all. I just really feel that you need to really consider this deeply. And I do know from your comments that you are, but it seems it's taken a turn this week towards okaying it. And I just hope we can find another way. And I really hope that, you know, I talked to Melching before and said, would you like to be a hero or a zero to this community? Because he will be hated in this community. And his grandchildren will not even want to say their name because he will be hated in this community for years. But he could be like Hackney in this community if he did the right thing and developed this as something that is for the people, brings jobs to the community. You know, I just, I'm hoping that'll affect it.
Anyone else have anything new they'd like to add?
Well, this is all speculation. My name is Leonard Sand, I live at 2964 Lakeshore Drive. That mic over a little bit, please. My name is Leonard Sand, I live at 2964 Lakeshore Drive. Sandy was not a problem. 50 years ago it was. It's done. I wouldn't come to Muskegon. In fact, I wouldn't come to Grand Haven on a weekend when it's a north wind. And my wife's from Grand Haven. And I think this whole thing is just gonna turn to trash. And I hope you took the time, brought up many issues of ingress, egress, dust, dirt, pollution. You don't know what's coming out of this. You don't know if we're gonna stick in this big 3-story building. And I just feel that they're just trying to smooth this thing over. And they wanna get their foot in the door, just like they did in Pensacola. And then this is what you're gonna end up with. Yay. And this is where the other half of that property is gonna be developed. The little white specks on the end. All cars, trucks, buses, trash, they're being parted out before they're running through the shredders. That's Padnos operation of Walker. This lady is really concerned. Lots of other people are. And a lot of them don't have the slightest idea what's even going on. So, thank you very much for your time.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Afternoon. My name is Tom Wood. I live on 2253 Harrison Avenue, one block off Lakeshore Drive. My first meeting in here ever. I think the first question I had was, didn't the city know what this guy was going to do when he bought the property? Didn't they have some kind of idea? I mean, are you gonna build an amusement park? Are you gonna build a slaughterhouse? What are you gonna do with it? You spend, I don't know how many millions cleaning up the lake, building all the downtown up, building this down, and right around the corner, you're gonna have a scrapyard. I just don't go in the same song. I just don't. I don't understand it. The lack of information has got everybody, in uproar. So, I think the public needs more information, and I think we ought to consider our resource. Even the sailboaters on Muskegon Lake are gonna look over there. It's not gonna be a pretty sight. That's all I got.
Thank you. Do we have everyone now? So the objective.
Name's Dan Mills, 1870. Yeah, first of all, trying to.
Knows you're addressing the commission, not the audience.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry, I gotta look at you. Okay.
You wanna talk?
Yeah, anyway, trying to compare this to, other more pedestrian kind of, property ownership and property rights things over the ages, doesn't really apply. This is today, not 100 years ago, even though a lot of people are trying to bring it back to 100 years ago. Things are better now. We have human rights now that we didn't have before, and we take better care of Mother Nature than we didn't used to. And so I'm grateful for that. The other thing is, this is a completely different sort of property than just, somebody buying and selling a rental house or something like that. But let's just say that it wasn't, it's still, the whole secrecy here, the idea that somebody can buy a piece of property and have this packed We are not allowed to know what kind of poisons reside on the property. People who reside in this community are forbidden to know the threats to their own human life and having their health because of some big money scheme. I mean, that's just an outrage. And so, of course, we got a lot of concerns. What the heck is going on? We aren't allowed to know even where the poisons reside on the property because the site plan won't show that. Okay? Very, very unusual. And so anyway, rumors are 80% of the time right, I found out. Now, somebody here, I think it was Mr. Larson, said last time we were here, that this rumor that it was going to be a scrapyard all along has materialized, and so the people were right with their talk on the street. Well, there's other rumors too, aren't there? That it's gonna be a fracking port, and that big 10-inch gas main that's going down there is liquefied natural gas from fracking, and this deep water port is just gonna be a fracking port, and so here comes or maybe a waste dump that we'll be bringing in toxic waste from all around the world and dump it right here on the lake shore. I mean, well, hey, let's snicker at that, right? I'm not snickering. I don't think it's funny, and I don't know why you do. If you sold yourself out.
If you were addressing the commission, you wouldn't be saying this, Murphy. Please address the commission.
Okay, Mr. Commissioner. This secrecy is an outrage. This is an unusual piece of property. There's two other things I want to say. Regardless of who owns that lot of land right there, nobody here in this room and nobody that I know of has a deed to that lake. Nobody here can say that they own